What's up, everybody? Welcome back to session 3, and let's go ahead and jump into what it is we've been doing. Now, last week we got into your why. We noticed that everything doesn't matter unless you have your reason why you're going to do it. How is great, what you're going to do is great, but if you don't have any reason why to do it, you don't do it. Now, if you're just like most people, you realize it's way harder than you thought to break into that. It's difficult. You start writing down your like 5 reasons why, and you start getting into it's loneliness, or it's it was a severe loss that I had, or something really hurt, something caused a lot of damage, and that's why I have these things that I have that I'm working through to become stronger. Now we talk about how to move through the things that held you back, or the things that hurt you the most, to make it so they don't hold you back anymore. It's action time. So, why should you get up? Why should you go for it? Why should you push yourself? Those are all things that now you can start getting into the action behind, because you already wrote that down and now you can see it. It's in front of you to give you the choice to be able to do something about it. Now, there's a big factor in that you need to be able to take into account. The thing that drives you toward a goal. Now, this is a difficult thing for me. I know I had to go through this also when you realized one of the 2 things that motivate you. Are you a person that moves towards pleasure, or are you a person that moves away from pain? And so are you a pleasure or a pain person? These are 2 different things that cause you to move or create action. And some people move towards what makes them feel good, and some people will get away from the things that make them feel bad, and that causes them to have massive action. So learning this about yourself can be difficult, and I had to figure that out about myself too when I thought that I was a move towards pleasure. But whenever you see these positive memes or all these happy-go-lucky concepts, they don't motivate you to actually do anything. But sometimes when you're in like, I'm going broke, or things are at their hardest, or I'm never going back to that situation ever again, you find yourself with a newfound vigor that causes so much momentum until you get back up to that comfort zone. And then when you're comfortable again, you tone it off a little bit. Where a move towards pleasure person is going to keep going as hard as they can, trying to catch that ever elusive pleasure point of whatever it is. But learning this about yourself may also help it when you redefine your goals on how you're going to do it. Your why may be directly contributed to whether you're moving away from something that would hurt you or moving towards something that makes you happy. Now, obviously, if you really want to get semantical with it, is a little bit of both, but understanding which one drives you most does help you to break into what it is or how it is that you're going to do what you need to do with your why. So that being said, take a little bit of moment of introspection and figure out which part of those things is you. So when you're in those moments of hurt, are you able to recognize them to take massive action to change your state, like we talked about even before? And by changing your state, it means like, I'm going to change the way that I am approaching this situation. And something about that I hear about making those massive actions turns into the way people are making their massive actions. And so with that, there's something that I got really deep into in my own concept of what it is that we're doing. And something about each of us that's different or unique may not be seen as different or unique or even this way. Gary Vaynerchuk says to triple down on your strengths. Triple down on your strengths. What we're doing is doing something where I call fighting with the wrong superpower. Now, each of us has an ability, has a way that we see things, a way we process, a way that we can contribute. There's something about us that we are the Michael Jordan of. We are really good at this thing, but it's not always developed or even taught to develop. And so when I say you have a superpower and it's time to start developing that superpower, it turns into what is the thing that you're really good at. And it could be you're very creative. It could be that you're very analytical. It could be that you have an ability or a skill that you can duplicate. You could have a high resistance or a high adaptability, and you're able to adapt to situations to be able to style step to make it so it works advantageously to your advantage. Or your resiliency is so high that you can take so much and you keep pushing through because you're unstoppable. Everybody's got a different power. We don't develop those powers necessarily. You might be hyper emotional and you're able to connect but also destroy because of those emotions. And if you don't practice with them, they end up becoming a waste, or you feel unfulfilled because you are not doing what you're meant to do. So take a little bit to kind of think about, what are my strengths? If I was to triple down on an ability that I have, what would that be? I'll give you even one of my ones that may not even seem like that's a strength until you start putting it next to other people. And I realized one of my strengths was I could do a mundane activity over and over and over again and see it as practice or controlled failure. And just, I would go well after everybody got bored. I would continue to do this thing until I was so good at that thing that people were like, man, you're impressively good at that. And I'm like, all I did was practice 10 times more than everybody else did. And I started realizing that that's an ability that not everybody has. I have people who, I just can't do it that long. I get too bored, or I get sidetracked, or I get distracted. I can't do it, where you stay focused. And that makes it so now that's an ability that I learned to control. And so when I see a problem, I'll take extreme practice and approach that problem with the mindset of I'm going to just duplicatedly work on my system of control to beat that problem. That's me fighting with my superpower. So the idea behind that is the Incredible Hulk is going to have one superpower where he's super strong and can just rage through that problem and smash what it is. Where Professor X, or a mind control person, is going to have a very different set of superpowers. But if Professor X or the guy in a wheelchair has got his mind control power and he's trying to Incredible Hulk a situation, it's not going to work out. No different than if the Hulk tries to use mind control to fix something. It doesn't work if you're not fighting with your ability. So now you'll see somebody who's like, man, that guy's got really cool powers that he does, and it's not the same as yours, but you're trying to approach that problem the way that person did to find a solution, when that's not the way that you operate. And so what works best for me isn't what works best for you. While I may have a very logical approach to something, sometimes you may have to take an emotional approach to find your fighting style against whatever inner demons or loss or self-doubt that you're overcoming. Triple down on your strengths. Fight with your power. Figure out what your way to do it. Are you hyper creative? Are you hyper analytical? What is your way that you fight? And then triple down and develop that ability. You see the montages in movies of where they're trying to figure out how to use their powers and completely messing it up, blowing up something or destroying something, or it just didn't work out.
Welcome to the School for the Gifted.
Yeah, doesn't exactly feel like a gift.
It never does at first. The first step in understanding one's power is learning the extent of it. Only then can we begin the process of teaching you how to control it. If you do decide to stay, I can promise you that by the time you're done here, you'll be able to go back into the world and play a stable and productive part in it. Why don't you take your bandages off and we can have a look at what we're dealing with here? Alex, would you line him up? Face him in the right direction, as it were. There's a target just across the water. When you open your eyes, try and hit that. You can open your eyes, Scott. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's quite... My grandfather planted that tree when he was 5 years old. I used to swing from the branches of it myself. I think that was probably my favorite tree.
Does that mean I'm expelled?
Oh, on the contrary. You're enrolled.
That's part of the process. But learning that about yourself gives you so much ability to be able to start conquering through some of the problems that you run into, or some of the things that you run into situationally that have been holding you back. And now you're not held back because you're approaching it with a different mindset of what your power is. Now, I can't tell you what that is, so I do want you to be introspective on two things I've told you. Do you move towards pleasure, or do you move away from pain? What is your strength, and how can you develop this strength? And then once you have that strength and you're developing it, how can you use that to benefit your situations, whether it be helping other people, helping yourself, or overcoming some of your inner demons that have been holding you back to make it so now you're more open to be able to fulfill your why. That's pretty big. So take a second on that and really put those together. How can you use your superpower for good? And then once you have that concept, you put that together, now it's time for action. And something with that is controlling your state, which is, we talked about getting into superhero stance or some sort of a wider posture, making your body bigger, like changing it so that your actual chemical makeup is different. Sometimes even jumping around can change your state completely. And by doing that, that makes it so that now you can start controlling the chemicals in your brain. That makes it so a situation that seems like overwhelmingly impossible becomes, try me. I bet I bust you up. I bet I win this. I bet I can do that. You start changing things into belief and certainty. And so I'm going to show you something that Tony Robbins showed us that I thought was just wonderful. Something that unlocks your potential. So what I'm going to do is, everything starts with potential. Your potential is the amount of ability that you have that you could develop to be able to do something. And then you take your potential and you start doing action. And action is the activity that you do. Your action will bring you results. And the results are going to be the results of what action you've put into from your potential. And from the results that you get starts developing your belief and your certainty. And your belief and how certain you are in the outcome of what something is going to be will push your potential to push even harder. Because now, once you believe in yourself, you're going to go with a very different vigor than you have if you didn't believe in yourself. And so the amount of potential becomes amplified to what it's truly meant to be, which now gives you different from action of trying something or figuring it out into massive action. And massive action is when you go all in at something to change whatever the situation is and you give it your all. Now, when you give massive action, that gives a very different result. And that result is now going to further intensify your belief and your certainty. So recognize what it is that you're doing in those moments to say, what is my potential towards the action I'm going to go? And massive action is the thing that changes everything. Now, when you're doing massive action, the thing people do is they try and do things without using their triple down strength or their power, and they try and do it somebody else's way, which you see has failed over and over again, which starts messing up your belief and certainty because the results aren't what you wanted them to be, which changes the amount of potential that you're using because you're giving way less action. It's a circular pattern of things that is failure. But if you go into a different mindset saying that thing didn't work, and now you change the idea of how you're going to approach this into the idea of using your strengths, using your superpowers. When you approach it with your way, you figure out, how do I use my triple down strength? How do I use my ability, my power, to give massive action, to get better results, to unlock just full certainty and belief in myself, to make it so now when I'm doing my loop of this thing, my actions have so much power behind it that success is the only option, whatever it is. It could be overcoming something in yourself, or it could be outwardly creating or building or having a business or raising a family or whatever it is. When you do it with your style, everything changes. Everything becomes more powerful. So let's go ahead and think about how we can change our state, though. Life doesn't care about your plans. Choices don't care about what your decisions are. And so when we have an idea of the way we think things that should go, we'll get busted down by something. Life will smash you down. And when life smashes you down and life pushes you down really hard, you have to be able to change that state. And so one thing, when you're in real negative state and you can really be pushed down, having the concept of being grateful. If you can take a moment, and when you're at your most down, you can say, what am I grateful for? What is something that I can look back and say, I'm grateful I have this, or I'm grateful for that experience, or I'm grateful for that moment in time that I won, or I overcame something, or the people in my life, or something that shouldn't be like that is. I've had a moment that could have ended my life, and now I'm in this moment that I shouldn't even be happening. I should be grateful for what I'm in right now. I should be grateful for these things. And when you start having gratitude towards things, it makes it difficult to stay negative because you realize your positives are all around you. These are all choices. And when you understand that controlling your state, controlling your mindset, controlling the way that you feel is a choice, it's not easy to do, but it is an option for you to start changing, what am I grateful for, or how can I use this to my benefit, versus life sucks. This is just a bunch of crap. I hate everything. Everything changes when your mindset changes, and that's a choice. Everything in this is a choice. It's all decisions that we make. But understand, sometimes it's an outside force. Somebody says something mean to me. I got picked on, or somebody bullied me, or somebody's being a jerk to me at work, or whatever the situation may be. Things to consider when you're in those moments is understanding where that's coming from. If something is outwardly pushing on you, understand something that takes a lot of power away from what they're doing is that the only reason people try to hurt people is because hurt people hurt people. I'll say it again. Hurt people, but happy people don't hurt people. And you've heard me say this over and over again. If something's coming in to try to cause damage to you, understand it's because they're damaged themselves. Happy people don't take time out of the day to try and damage people because they're in a good mood. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. But if you catch yourself in a situation where somebody is doing something messed up, you have to maybe take that moment of choice, or maybe that moment of gratitude, and go, what is really going on with them to make them do this? Now, this is going to be obviously going against your years and years of reactions and your training that you've seen, where if somebody does something, I go freaking ape shit on them and go crazy. Obviously, there's going to be some cognitive reprogramming where you have to take inventory in those moments and say, okay, this person is doing something, they must be hurting very bad, and taking their power back. And it's even a conversation, go ahead and just have fun with some of the ideas when you see somebody going through a difficult time and going, listen, I hear you. What's really going on with you right now, though? I know that you're trying to be upset at me, but what's really happening? Because I know that I didn't really do the thing that you're mad about. What's really happening? And it messes up the whole conversation for them. It's hard to stay angry when somebody's trying to show concern or love for you. It screws up the whole program. Just understand that when an outside force has hurt you in the past, or something is influenced the way that you felt, or even how you feel about yourself, your self-doubt, or something that's been inflicted on you from outside sources, creating loss of dignity, loss of pride, loss of self-esteem, loss of momentum, loss of a loved one, loss, period, starts manifesting and outwardly becoming self-doubt. And when you start recognizing what is that thing to take the power back, it starts eliminating self-doubt. Like I said, these are easy concepts to say, but not easy concepts to do. I just want you on this week to be able to understand the massive action that gets taken comes from your powers and understanding how life works on these things. We all know that life doesn't work the way we think it should work. Life does what it does. And so I do want you to take some final thoughts to consider here, is that things don't suck. Things just are. One person's horrible as another person's. That was awesome. So sometimes in situations where you say this is the worst, maybe it just is. How are you going to deal with it? And that's when you get into some race to acceptance stuff. And I think we're going to save some race to acceptance for next week. So I want you to have that in mindset of just being able to go, how quickly can I get to it? It's a pretty deep thought process on that. And so I want to just thank you guys for watching this. I know that I tried to condense this down to be very quick. I do want you to rewatch it again, because getting into the move towards pleasure or away from pain, getting into what's your superpower and triple down on your strengths, how to take action and developing that power to overcome whatever obstacles you have in your life. Understanding your potential to action, to results, to belief and certainty in yourself, to making so you take massive action. That all comes from understanding your why from last week, and then being able to have that mindset of gratefulness and being able to say, when I'm in a down place, how can I be grateful to lift my state back up, even changing the way I'm standing for a few minutes to create a different mindset to conquer and overcome. Knowing that life doesn't work the way you think it works the way that it should work, and you have to learn how to handle those moments, because things don't always suck. Sometimes they just are. And so how quickly can you accept that it is what it is? All right, a lot that we went over there, a lot of stuff that we covered. I want to thank you guys so much for all of the support that you've done, and I'm going to send you guys the questions on being able to develop or understand your superpower, and I look forward to sharing more with you next week.